Today there are just 94, and the average age of a nuclear plant in the United States is 42 years.
Yeah.
How does the techno-optimist respond to that fact set?
So this is the great tragedy of the domestic policies of the Nixon administration, right? So
Of the Nixon administration.
Of the Nixon administration.
All right.
So Richard Nixon, Richard Nixon saw the energy crisis coming, and it developed in his second term, started getting underway. And he announced something he called Project Independence. And he said, this is ridiculous. We can't be running on fossil fuels from the Middle East. This is crazy. It's entangling us in all this, crazy foreign stuff. Like, we need to stop. We're the United States. We can power ourselves. And so,
on which he was correct.
Yes, of course. He's completely correct. He declared Project Independence. Project Independence was, we're going to build 1,000 new nuclear power plants in the United States by the year 2000 and go completely independent. So we're going to cut the entire grid over to nuclear production, electrical consumption, by the way, corollary, electric cars. And so, and by the way, green, like corollary, no more carbon emissions, right? We're going to have 1,000 nuclear plants, no carbon emissions, completely green. Nuclear plants put out water with a small amount of easily contained waste. But we're going to build those, and we were building nuclear power plants, as in the 50s, 60s, 70s. But by the 70s, we started to have these new technologies like computers, where you could see a way to build much more efficient and much safer plants, right? And so he announced that, and then he created the Environmental Protection Agency, and he created the Nuclear Regulatory Commission,
which shut down which shut down a project which, had it gone forward, would have changed everything.
Yes, and those agencies prevented Project Independence from happening.
Okay, so I think this is a brilliant stroke, and that is because it occurred to me, my own little head, in the middle of the night one night. I was tossing and turning and thought, hey, wait a minute. And here's the hey, wait a minute. The first nuclear submarine was commissioned in 1955.
Right.
Which means that the United States of America, which has nuclear powered vessels of all kinds, has been building and operating small nuclear reactors for 6 and 7 decades.
Yeah, right.
And has the systems down so well that these things can be operated by 19-year-old kids who haven't even finished their high school degree. Yeah. And the technology is owned by the American taxpayers.
Yes.
Why aren't we using this?
Where are they? So, as you know...
And by the way, the military is exempt from the Nuclear Regulatory Commission.
Right. So they just do it. And
so is there not a huge opportunity there?
And as you know, literally what they do is they take 19-year-old kids and they train them on how to be nuclear engineers.
Yes.
And then they send them out on 6-month whatever.
Underwater. Operating, yes.
And
there has, as far as I'm aware, there's never been a nuclear incident.
That's my understanding.
Yeah.
Yeah. The other amazing thing about that, by the way, it was pre-DEI.
Of course.
Like, just imagine how amazing it is, given everything we know today, that you could actually do this without the enormous benefits of DEI. Imagine what you could do with DEI.
Now you're being subversive.
quite possibly. Anyway, so the more serious part, in those days, as you know, they also because they knew they could do them in subs, and so therefore they just assumed that they would also do them for airplanes, right? They were nuclear powered airplanes.
That I did not.
Do you remember the Tom Swift novels?
That I remember.
Yeah,
yes.
So I'm reading them with my 9-year-old, and it's the very first Tom Swift. There's multiple generations. Tom Swift, boy inventor, and there's these novels basically for kids. They were like the Harry Potter of the time or something. But there's this great series from the 50s with the second generation Tom Swift, and they're great. And it's like, Tom Swift invents this and that. He invents all these things, and then has adventures based on them, and so they're very exciting books. But the very first book is Tom Swift and his Flying Lab, and of course the Flying Lab is a triple-decker 747 thing with this vertical takeoff and landing powered by its own nuclear power plant.
I see.
And you just assumed, of course you put a nuclear, and if you put, by the way, a nuclear plant in a plane, of course you could have a 747 that takes off vertically. And by the way, they in the book they literally take the thing up to like 30,000 feet and they just park it and they just hang in midair and hover for 3 hours and have lunch.
Which you can do.
If you have unlimited power. And so this is it. And by the way, this technology is for people concerned about carbon emissions. This technology is the silver bullet.
It is. Is the general feeling, my general feeling, correct? That if we unleash technology, we use the free market, we use the government, what the government has already discovered, an intelligent, that there are all kinds of problems we already know how to solve.